My husband of 50 years, once respectful and kind, poised me on his deathbed. The greatest regret of my life was marrying you for my future. If I could do it all over again, I wouldn't let you get close to me. The only one I ever loved was Vivian. Theft. A mouthful of blood surged up my throat as I forced out a single word. All right. How easily the heart changes. Only the peach blossoms still smile in the spring breeze. I stared blankly at the young man begging along the long avenue. This time I wanted nothing more to do with him. Spring winds stirred softly. Peach blossoms bloomed in profusion and all felt like a dream. The familiar scene jolted me awake. I had returned to the year I came of age. At that moment, I heard the voice of a servant cursing. "Impudent beggar, how dare you block our young lady's carriage?" Without thinking, I leapt down from the carriage. A slender figure in grace stood in front of the horses, bowing respectfully, just as he had in my previous life. It was Felix, the man who had been my husband for 50 years. The very same man who in this life would later poison me on his deathbed. His once gentle gaze had turned to bitterness. "Madam, it's all your fault. If you hadn't saved me back then, I wouldn't have owed you anything. I could have had a perfect match with Vivian." The sound of approaching footsteps snapped me back to the present. My throat still burned faintly from the poison of my past life. My half-sister Vivian approached with her maid and nursemaid. The gold hairpin in her hair swayed with her steps. "Sister," she called softly when she saw me. "Weren't you heading to Kunyuin Temple to pray? Why are you standing here?" I clenched my fists, nails digging into my flesh. I could still hear Felix's bitter voice at the end. "I gave up Vivian for my future and married you. It was wise. A mistake." I steadied myself and looked at the demure girl before me. "Vivian," I said hoarsely. "I'm not feeling well. I won't be going today." After boarding the carriage, I secretly hid nearby just in time to see everything unfold. "I wonder why there is a beggar here. He stinks. It's making me sick." Vivian recoiled, pointing at Felix with obvious disgust. "Get away from me." Now, the moment she appeared, Felix had taken notice. Of course, he wouldn't back off so easily. That familiar voice I had less, and for 50 years spoke gently. "You misunderstand, miss, I'm not a beggar. I'm a scholar on my way to take the spring examinations. I was robbed by mountain bandits. That's why I look like this." He had said the exact same thing in my previous life. I only found out later that it was a lie. His father had died early and his family was destitute. He studied using the few coins his aging mother earned by washing clothes for villagers. Seeing Vivian's disdain, Felix hastily pulled out a document, offering it like a treasure. "This is my identification bearing the official seal. Please have a look." Vivian didn't even touch it. The document fell to the ground, trampled by passing feet. "So what if you have papers?" She sneered. "You're still just a beggar." After a moment's hesitation, she tossed a copper coin toward him. "Here, I'll be generous. Since you're a scholar, buy yourself a bun." The coin clinked to the ground in front of him. Her meaning was clear. If he wanted it, he'd have to pick it up himself. Felix froze. His lips moved, but no words came out. I knew he was furious inside. He may have been poor, but he had pride. And Vivian, she crushed that pride into dust. Even angry, he couldn't bring himself to lash out in front of the girl he liked. In my past life, I had pitted his circumstances. I gave him 100 taels of silver, paid for him to stay at the most luxurious inn in the capital, and even asked my father to help him with connections. But he never treated me with such generosity. Throughout our 50-year marriage, I was always the one compromising, always yielding. His so-called devotion had been nothing but empty words. Vivian may have been born of a concubine, but she was still the daughter of a marquis. She could never understand how hard Felix's life had been. To her, tossing a coin to a filthy beggar was already an immense act of charity. As I watched the proud and handsome young man flushed with shame and wanting to disappear into the earth, I laughed quietly to myself. Let's see how blissful he and Vivian will be this time around. Time passed quickly. Over 2 months later, the results of the spring examinations were announced. "Congratulations. Second miss, that scholar you gave 2 coins to he passed." A servant rushed in as Vivian and I were enjoying tea, brimming with excitement. Vivian was thrilled, tugging at my arm in delight. "Sister, I never expected it. That beggar young Master Felix was so well versed in his studies that he actually passed." I nodded. How could he not? In my past life, he had been the top scholar in the nation. His elegant calligraphy and unique perspectives had impressed the emperor himself. Delighted. His Majesty personally named Felix the champion of the examinations, a brilliant success from humble roots. Truth be told, he got lucky. The emperor was seeking to promote commoners to counterbalance the aristocracy. The day of the celebratory parade, he came to our marquee to propose marriage. As the only legitimate daughter of the house, my parents cherished me deeply. They couldn't bear to marry me off to someone from a humble background, but I admired Felix's intellect. I insisted on marrying him. My father finally relented, even as my mother wept bitterly by his side because of my pleas. My father helped Felix through his connections. After our marriage, he supported us generously so I could bite comfortably. I poured my heart into managing the household so Felix never had to worry about it. I even personally cared for his aging mother without ever complaining. And yet 50 years of devotion could not compare to his unfulfilled love for Vivian. Seeing me nod, Vivian beamed with pride. Sister, you were there that day, too. But in the end, I was the one who helped him. Isn't this fate? She giggled, eyes shining. Sister, I'm a little nervous. What if he comes to propose? Should I marry him? I looked at her flushed face and asked gently, Vivian, do you like him? Vivian covered her face with a handkerchief, blushing. He's good looking. I don't dislike him. Just when I thought she might have changed, she added. But when I think about how poor and pathetic he looked that day, it just makes my skin crawl. If I really married him, how would I live? I smiled faintly. That was the real Vivian. Legitimate or not. She looked down on anyone beneath her, and that contempt didn't vanish even when they became successful. Softly, having softly felt, I said, Vivian, this is a decision that will shape your entire life. I can't tell you what to do, but Father has always been open-minded. If you truly like him, he'll support you. Vivian may have been born into a noble family, but her mother had only managed to conceive her by scheming her way into my father's bed as a mere maid. Everyone in the capital's upper circles knew this well. If she wanted to marry above her station, she'd have to settle for being a concubine. If she married into a lesser household, she could be the official wife, but she didn't want that either. In my past life, Father married her off to the son of a wealthy merchant outside the city. Though merchants were looked down upon, that family treated her with nothing but kindness. Her husband adored her, stayed faithful his whole life, and never took another woman. But she looked down on him, disdained her in-laws, and nearly tore that entire household apart. This time, she was marrying Felix. Maybe things would be different. Big sister, you met young Master Felix that day, too. What did you? Her probing tone made me uncomfortable. In a flash, my expression turned cold, and I cut her off mid-sentence. Even if Felix were the only man left in the entire Wood Kingdom, I'd rather grow old alone than ever look at him. Seeing I was angry, Vivian quickly tried to placate me. Big sister. Vivian spoke out of turn. Please forgive me just this once. I couldn't be bothered to respond and turned away to return to my room. Why should a legitimate daughter like me show kindness to the daughter of a scheming maid? In the past, I had been too indulgent. That's what gave her the gall to overstep. The day of the celebratory parade arrived. The capital was packed with people, bustling with festivity. On that very day, Felix brought a matchmaker to formally propose to Vivian in the main hall. He bowed deeply to my father and said with utmost reverence, a drop of grace must be repaid with a fountain of gratitude. Second miss once helped me. I humbly request the Marquis's permission to marry her. Father could hardly contain his joy. To see a girl of such disgraceful origins marry into an official's household brought honor to the Marquis. Vivian's awkward standing and able to marry up. Unwilling to marry down had led to many arguments with Father Male. He could finally be rid of that trouble. He was truly pleased. Vivian had been eavesdropping outside the window, and once the marriage was settled, she came straight to me to flaunt it. Big sister, young Master Felix really kept his promise. He came to propose right after being named the top scholar in the imperial exams. I never imagined. But you've always been so magnanimous. Surely you won't hold it against your little sister, will you? Her syrupy tongue made my stomach turn. I couldn't help but retort. Little sister, who told you your future husband was the top scorer? Don't tell me you're already dreaming of being the champion's wife. Vivian's face went pale. Then she forced a smile and replied, must have been the servant spreading gossip. I must have misunderstood. Even if he didn't come out on top, he's probably at least the third-rate scholar, right? Honestly, with his looks, that rank suits him best. I shot her a glare. None of those. He merely passed the palace exam, which is decent enough. Congratulations, sister. You're going to be the wife of a 9-rank official. In the previous life, I did everything I could to help Felix. With financial support and backing from high officials, he finally earned imperial favor. But in this life, without my silver, Felix barely had time to study. Most days he was begging on the streets. Other examinees mocked his poverty, often beating him. The bruises didn't matter. But when his hands were injured, he could no longer write properly, which meant the title of top scholar would forever be beyond his reach. Vivian couldn't believe it. She cried out, "Impossible. I won't marry him." Then she lifted her skirts and ran. Her nanny spat in disgust. A concubine-born girl with a ruined reputation. Still thinking she can marry into nobility. Even the Marquis said no respectable house would take her, not even as a concubine. I took the hot tea Annie offered and gave a small nod. She went on honestly, having fulfilled except. "Miss, you've spoiled her too much. She's forgotten her place. Now she even dares turn her nose up at a man who passed the palace exam." Marrying Felix was already a good outcome. Otherwise, father wouldn't be this pleased. But Vivian was greedy and never knew when enough was enough. Forget it. I didn't want to think about it anymore. In this life, I wanted nothing to do with Felix. He and Vivian were now betrothed. Let them figure out the rest. I thought Vivian would throw a tantrum like before, threatening hunger strikes to break off the engagement. Instead, she actually went and seduced the only son of Princess Qingping, even if he was a notorious playboy. Someone of that status was still far beyond Vivian's reach. All I could say was, Vivian certainly aimed high. According to her maid, she had met the princess's son while dining at the Arui tavern. They had already become lovers and she might even be pregnant. I glanced at her wrist. Sure enough, the chastity mark was gone. Vivian had dreamed of marrying into the princess's household. But the man only wanted to enjoy her for free, never intending to make her his wife. Now she was heartbroken. Not only had her dream of marrying up been shattered, she had also lost her virtue. Father had always been concerned about his reputation. He had already endured years of criticism because of Vivian's mother. Now Vivian once again dragged a marquis into disgrace. Enraged, father had her confined in the ancestral hall and summoned the family whip. Vivian's eyes were swollen from crying. She pleaded pitifully. "Father, don't blame me. I was forced," but father was livid. He bellowed. "Doing something so shameless, who could have forced you into it?" His words were followed by the harsh crack of the whip. Vivian convulsed in pain, but still cried out, "It's all sister's fault. If she hadn't stolen my place as the legitimate daughter, would I have had to use my body to chase after glory? Father, if you're going to beat someone, beat her, too. Otherwise, I won't accept it." I let out a cold laugh. Amazing how she could twist anything to blame me. Father grew even more furious. "You chose to debase yourself and still dare blame Era. I truly regret it. If only I hadn't been drunk that night and fallen into your mother's trap." Concubine to herself over Vivian, crying and begging. "My lord, it's all my fault. I shamed your good name. Please spare Vivian just this once." In the end, blood ties are hard to sever. Despite everything, father still softened and gave Vivian 3 choices. First, cut her hair and become a nun at the temple. Second, move to the countryside estate and live the rest of her life in anonymity. Third, take her own life to preserve the Marquis' honor. As I expected, Vivian refused them all. Then, suddenly, she remembered Felix. "Father, mother, I can't die. I'm engaged to young Master Felix. I once helped him. He'll marry me." Even now at that moment, Felix was her only hope to save her. Concubine went to kneel before my mother. Mother was always soft-hearted. Back then, when father had wanted to sell concubine off, it was mother who had pleaded on her behalf. "Madam, it's all my fault for raising Vivian so poorly. Please, I beg you, spare her life. I'll repay you in my next life. Even as a beast, a burden." But Vivian's scandal had already affected my marriage prospects. This time my mother stood her ground. "You love your daughter. Do you think I don't love mine? Is your daughter the only one who matters? Well, mine doesn't count at all. In my past life as the legitimate daughter of a marquis, even marrying a prince would have been entirely within my reach. But now, because of Vivian, I was forced into a lesser match. Fate is never fair. Even though I had done nothing wrong, I was still implicated. Still, I didn't mind too much. In this lifetime, if I could remain by my parents' side and fulfill my duties as a daughter, that would be enough. Father, however, had made up his mind this time. He would not let Vivian off easily. Who knew what greater chaos she might bring if left unchecked? They were both his daughters. But when it came to weighing worth, father had always been clear. He ordered the servants to strip Vivian of her fine garments and prepared to send her off to the countryside estate. Just as they were about to force her into the bridal sedan, a message came from the gate. Prince Julian of Yongchang had arrived to propose marriage. Vivian suddenly came to life. She broke free from the attendants, threw herself at father's leg, and cried out, "Father, I met Prince Julian once at the spring bank this year to propose to me. Please, father, spare me just this once." Her mother, concubine Li, no longer knelt. She straightened her back, shot a look of disdain at my mother, and turned to father with a smirk. "My lord, the glory of the Marquis household now rests on Vivian." She had always believed that men favored bold forward women. Father's brow furrowed deeply as the C's and Marquis was. He would never believe that a noble prince would fall for someone like Vivian, whose conduct was anything but virtuous. Julian Enlad, Prince of Yonkin, was the only prince of foreign blood in the entire empire. A war hero and sworn brother to the emperor himself. Even if Vivian had her innocence intact, she likely wouldn't be good enough for him, let alone now, her reputation in tatters. Father ordered the servants to closely guard Vivian and concubine Li and told my mother and me to join him in the main hall to receive the guest. Vivian, though she promised to behave, bribed a servant and sneaked out, terrified she might lose her supposed fate with the prince. In the hall, father and mother were already speaking with Prince Julian. I stood quietly behind a folding screen, observing in both my past and present lives. I barely knew him. All I had heard was that he had once saved the emperor during a covert trip and fought furiously on the battlefield. In my previous life, I'd once heard someone say, because the one he loved had married another. Prince Julian never took a wife for the rest of his life. As I was lost in thought, I saw him, a prince of the realm, bow respectfully to my father and mother. "My lord Marquis. Madam, I have long admired your eldest daughter, Aller. Today I come to formally ask for her hand. I hope you will bestow your blessing." He was asking to marry me. That I had not expected. Before I could even process it, Vivian burst into the room, hair disheveled, and shouted, "Isn't this a mistake, Your Highness? If you propose to the wrong person, you'll become the laughingstock of the capital. The future princess holds great dignity. I do not make such mistakes. Mind your words." Even before she reached him, Julian's presence chilled the air. Father had once told me this was the aura of a warrior. A killing intent born from years on the battlefield. Terrified, Vivian stumbled back, but couldn't help raising her voice. "I don't believe it. You should like someone beautiful, lively, and charming like me. Why would you want to marry a dull, rigid bore like her? Doesn't she repulse you?" Julian's voice rang like steel. "And what right do you have to compare yourself to Era? You're not even worthy to carry her shoes." Father worried she'd cause more trouble. Ordered the servants to take Vivian away. As she was dragged off, her eyes burned with hatred. My parents didn't give an immediate answer to the proposal. They said they would ask for my opinion and then sent Prince Julian off. Before leaving in front of the maids and servants, Julian turned to me. "Please believe in me. Just give me the chance to take care of you." I don't know why, but remembering that in his past life, he had remained unmarried stirred a deep longing in my chest. My mother looked both joyful and reluctant. "Allah, what do you think of Prince Julian? I've heard he's a man of integrity. He doesn't even keep maids in his inner quarters. If you marry him, I can rest easy. The fact that he came to propose now when your name is in ruins means he truly cherishes you." Father's tone was probing, layered with meaning. "Allah, when did you come to know Prince Julian? He never intended to take a wife. Why would he want to marry you?" I was just as confused. In both lifetimes, I barely knew Julian beyond rumors. This time, I hadn't even considered marriage. When other families came to propose, I had asked mother to turn them all down. But now, with Vivian's scandal stirring gossip across the city, even for the sake of my parents, this marriage was no longer just my decision to make. To marry Prince Julian was undeniably my best option. I didn't sleep all night. As soon as the sun rose, I went to my mother. "Mother, I'm willing to marry him." For some reason, the image of that noble prince bound to my father made my heart take. So be it. If fate allows us to become husband and wife in this life, then that is something precious. Even if I don't love him yet, I will do everything I can to bring joy and wholeness to his life. My mother was overjoyed. "As long as you're willing, I will begin the preparations. You'll have a grand procession of red bridal veils stretching 10 miles, nothing less." My eyes reened. "Mother, I can't bear to part with you and father." She gently dabbed at my tears with a handkerchief. "Silly girl. What woman doesn't eventually marry? As long as you and the prince are happy, that's all that matters. My mother had always doted on me. Even though she disapproved of Felix in my past life, she still prepared a wedding procession of 128 bridal chests for me. It was that dairy and my father's support that helped Felix rise step by step, eventually becoming Grand Chancellor of the Empire. But Julian was already a prince. He lacked for nothing. He didn't need my support. This time, surely I would live a better life at the very least, one where I didn't have to pinch and scrape. The news of my engagement to Julian shook the entire capital. No one had expected a ruined woman like me to become a princess consort. For a while, every tea house and tavern buzzed with talk of me and Julian. Some even said he had remained unmarried for years just to wait until I came of age. The young princess residents didn't refute any of it. They let the rumors spread and checked so much so that even bookstores began publishing stories based on us. When Nanny told me this, I was busy embroidering a sachet for Julian. In my previous life, I'd heard that he had suffered from chronic headaches after years of war and had trouble sleeping. The sachet was filled with calming herbs. I hoped it might bring him some relief. Suddenly, a servant burst in, eyes shining with excitement. "Miss, come quickly. The Emperor himself has arrived to deliver the betrothal gifts for Prince Julian. There are so many we can't even count them." His Majesty said the prince offered everything in the royal household and even asked the Imperial Household Department to add more. He was afraid it wouldn't be enough for you. At first, Julian had been a stranger to me. I'd even feared him, especially the cold aura he exuded that day. But when I saw him in the front courtyard, holding a fixed scroll of gifts and smiling at me, I was deeply moved. Whatever his reasons for marrying me, he treated me with sincerity. Just as Mother had said, he truly wholeheartedly admired me. For that alone, once we were married, I would give him children and care for him with all my heart. After our wedding date was set, so too were the dates for Felix and Vivian's fates. In our past life together, we spent 50 years side by side. I thought I knew Felix well. He was a man who prized his dignity. Proud and stubborn like a scholar. Even back then, when I helped him so much, he refused to let me say a single word on his behalf. Vivian's actions had trampled on a man's pride. How could Felix possibly accept that? Unless he had truly changed this time, or was he simply so willing to throw everything away for Vivian? But whether or not he was willing to marry her was one thing. Vivian's opinion of him was quite another. Felix's family was poor, and he held only a low-ranking 9th-class official post. Unable to gather any proper betrothal gifts, his long-suffering mother offered a single silver bracelet she'd treasured for years as a present for her future daughter-in-law, Vivian. Viv, of course, looked down on it and was clearly displeased, but had no choice but to tolerate it. Vivian insisted on getting married on the same day as me. Even if she said nothing, I could see right through her. On our wedding day, she walked into my room in full bridal attire and ordered everyone out. "I need to speak with my sister alone," she said. I gave her a cold smile, unwilling to play along. "There's no need to pretend anymore. Dear sister, your thoughts are written all over your face." Vivian rumbled with rage at being exposed. "I'm still your sister. So what if I ask you to give the prince to me?" She lunged at me, hand raised, about to strike. I cut her wrist before she could land the blow. "Sister," I said calmly. "You'd best return and fix your makeup. It'd be unfortunate to miss the auspicious hour. And oh, after the wedding, eat more walnuts. Good for the brain. Unknown fool, and I'd never hand over the prince to you." Before I could finish, Nanny stormed in with the maids. She slapped Vivian hard several times and dragged her out. Vivian hadn't expected me to see through her scheme, but looking at her stunned expression, I knew for certain she truly wanted to take my place and marry the prince. Had her plans succeeded, it would have been a disaster. But once the wedding night came and the mistake was made, neither the royal house nor the Marquis family could turn back. She'd be the princess and I'd end up just like in the previous life, married to Felix. Fortunately, heading to Feltley, I discovered it in time. I had to admit Vivian's scheme was ruthless. In the end, she was forced into a shabby bridal sedan carried by only 2 men, something not even a concubine of the nobility would accept. At the very least, a proper one required for a marquis's daughter would have 4 bearers. I, on the other hand, rode in the grand ornate bridal palace man prepared by Prince Yonkin because the prince's betrothed gifts were so lavish. My mother prepared an area of 256 chests and trunks. The concubine, scraping together every bit she could, only managed 4. Even when she cried and pleaded with my parents, it was no use. On the wedding day, for it wasn't for it remained. From afar, I caught sight of Felix in his red wedding robes. Looking anything but joyous, he stared blankly at my palanquin as it rolled away. That looked so familiar. Vivian lifted her bridal veil and sneered. Don't get any foolish ideas. You should be grateful that I was willing to lower myself to marry you. Felix turned to gaze long and hard in the direction of Prince Yongking's estate before finally mounting his horse. The journey to the prince's residence was filled with flowers and cheers. When we arrived, the palace gates were opened. I was about to wait for the matron of honor to help me down when, to my surprise, I was swept up into a bridal carry. The air was filled with teasing and laughter. I told you so. His Highness truly adores the princess. So jealous. He's so attentive, he won't even let her take a few steps on her own. Even the emperor had come out of the palace to personally witness our wedding ceremony, adding even greater weight to the occasion. Afterward, I was escorted to the bridal chamber. Sitting under the warm glow of the dragon phoenix candles, I was both nervous and expectant. I wasn't sure how to face Julian. Having lived once before, I knew full well what was about to happen. Time passed, and when I heard the sounds outside quiet down, I hurried to pull the red bridal veil over my head and sat up straight. When the veil was lifted, I saw him tall, strikingly handsome, his gaze tender yet nervous. He stammered, "Wife, shall we two retire?" This man, Prince Yongqing, who once charged so furiously on the battlefield, couldn't even utter a complete sentence on his wedding night. If anyone found out, they'd mock him endlessly. And suddenly, I wasn't nervous anymore. I reached out to remove his outer robe, wrapped my arms around his neck, and tilted my face up to meet his. His body stiffened, cold sweat breaking out on his forehead. But this time, he could no longer hold back. "My love," he whispered hoarsely. You're willing, too, aren't you? I want us to be husband and wife in every sense." Just like that, my soft, willing body melted into his arms. He held me with the utmost gentleness, taking the lead, yet careful in every move. I could feel him holding back, afraid of hurting me. I nodded and whispered, yes, this was something I'd already resolved long ago. If we were to marry, then I would give him everything. It wasn't until dawn that Julian finally let me go. I had never been one to sleep in. But that morning, I didn't wake until the sun was high in the sky. When Nanny came in with the maids to attend me, she wore a barely hidden smile. "Your Highness, His Grace treats you so well. Before leaving, he instructed us not to disturb your rest." My entire body ached. Yet even so, I knew Julian had held back as much as he could. I couldn't help wondering if he hadn't restrained himself. Could I even have withstood it? His body was strong and full of power, and strangely I didn't mind it. "Where is His Highness?" I asked. Nani replied. There was unrest among the refugees outside the city. So the prince went to handle it personally. I was puzzled. The emperor valued Julian so highly. Why wouldn't he even allow him proper time off for his wedding? But then Nanny added, His Highness feared innocent people might get hurt. That's why he insisted on going himself. After lunch, I was resting on the couches, trying to soothe the ache in my waist. When Julian returned after our intimate night together, there was now a new warmth in the way he looked at me. He gently massaged my lower back and asked softly, "Does it hurt, my love?" Just remembering the previous night beneath him made my cheeks flush. I turned my face away. "It's not too bad." Julianne then scooped me up again and laid me down on the bed. "It's my fault. Rest well today. Tonight, I'll love you even more tenderly." I couldn't help it. I buried my face under the covers in embarrassment. Was this really the cold and aloof Prince Yongqing? He didn't seem anything like the man in the rumors. Still, I didn't forget to ask what I had to. "My lord, why did you ask to marry me? Why would a prince like him marry someone like me?" That was a question I had never been able to figure out. True, I was the daughter of a marquis, but he was a royal prince. There was no reason for him to marry a woman with a tainted reputation like me. Julian's eyes dimmed with disappointment as he said, "Darling, I knew it. You've forgotten me." I was even more bewildered. Had I met Julian before? Why didn't I remember a thing? Seeing my confusion, Julian looked aggrieved. His voice tinged with a sob. "Of course, I'm just a nobody from a bandit gang. How could a noble daughter of the Marquis Manor remember me? A bandit?" A vague memory surfaced. I might have saved a bandit once. Just as the thought came to me, he began to speak again. "Don't you remember? My love. 5 years ago, after losing my parents, I was forced to join a bandit gang just to survive. But they treated me terribly and beat me often. They tossed me barely clinging to life onto the roadside. It was you who saved me, bandaged my wounds, gave me 50 taels of silver and told me to find honest work. You even encouraged me to live on. You said everyone had a reason to live and that I should strive even harder because of how cruel the world had been to me. After I had eaten and recovered, I found work at a security escort agency. By sheer chance, I ended up saving the Emperor, who was traveling incognito. We got along instantly. The Emperor saw that I had great strength, so he arranged for me to join the army. I just returned to the capital this past February. As Julian spoke, the memory slowly came back to me. 5 years ago, I had accompanied my parents to Yeongju to pay respects to our ancestors and stayed there for a few days. I heard the peach blossoms were blooming just outside the city. So I asked Nanny to take me to see them. On the way, I rescued a young man covered in blood. He was badly wounded, dressed in tatters. I couldn't bear to walk away. He told me his parents had passed and everyone bullied him, saying he wanted to die just to see them again. I was afraid he really would. So I comforted him. Big brother, I said, I'll share my parents with you. That way you'll have parents again. You have to keep living. Then I asked Manny to give him all the silver we had on us, though I now had my answer. I still asked. Then mad als your beloved before I could finish. Julian interrupted eagerly. It's you. It's always been you. I never imagined that a small act of kindness back then would lead to such a destined bond. In my past life, Felix also married me out of gratitude. But in the end, we became bitter enemies. Even on his deathbed, he tried to poison me. What would become of me and Julian? As I thought about it, my fingers holding Julian's robe trembled slightly. Both men married me out of gratitude. I couldn't bear to walk that same tragic path again. Sensing my anxiety, Julian panicked and flailed. My love, did I frighten you? Please don't be afraid. It was too presumptuous of me. I took a deep breath and tears fell from my eyes. Did your highness marry me only to repay a debt of gratitude? If it's just that, there's no need to wrong yourself. So Julian grew flustered. He quickly pulled me into his arms. It's because I didn't do enough that you felt so wronged. Last night, it was my first time to please understand me. It took me a while to fully grasp what he meant. Once I did, all sorrow momentarily fled my mind, afraid I'd misunderstood. Julian grew serious and hurried to explain. My love, saving me back then was indeed a great kindness. But if I only wanted to repay you, I had many ways to do so. I could have sent you a dowry, upheld the honor of your family, or asked the Emperor, my brother, to look after the Marquis Manor. I didn't have to marry you. From the moment I met you, you took root in my heart. I wanted to marry you. But I knew I was just a lowly bandit, unworthy of a noble daughter like you. So I fought on the battlefield with all my might just to get closer to you. Even though I nearly lost my life more than once. I've walked this path toward you for years. Do you really think all my longing over the years was a lie? I want to tell you a secret. Only the Emperor knows this. These past years on the frontier, I've constantly asked my brother to keep me updated on you. When I heard that you had come of age and your family was arranging your marriage, I risked my life to infiltrate the enemy camp and slay their general just so I could return to the capital sooner. Every word burned with deep affection. Julian's sincerity was unmistakable. I believed him. I threw myself into his arms and held him tightly. If there really were second chances, if I hadn't married Felix in that past life, I might have met someone like Julian, someone whose eyes held only me. Only now did I realize. In that past life, Julian lived a lonely life to the end because of me. Thankfully, having fulfilled my absai, I've been given the chance to choose again. Even if I had known nothing about him, I still would have chosen to marry him. This time I hope we can truly live a happy life. The days of newlywed bliss passed quickly and soon it was time to return to my family home to leave a big impression on my parents. Julian prepared lavish gifts and even went to the palace to ask the Emperor for more, stopping only when he was satisfied. I felt a bit uneasy. Husband, are we going too far by dragging His Majesty into our marriage like this? Helping me onto the carriage, Julian was utterly unconcerned. He's my brother. What's wrong with him lending a hand in my wedding? He's so happy he's grinning ear to ear. I still protested, but it's too much. The betrothal gifts were already excessive. And now even the gifts for our return visit are from the Emperor. Julian covered my mouth mid-sentence. Era, you don't understand. He's not worried about me asking too much. He's worried I'll never get married at all. I believed him. I recalled how in my past life people at the spring banquet had gossiped that the Emperor had gone to great lengths to get Julian to marry, resorting to love potions and sending noble women to seduce him, all to no avail. When the carriage reached the Marquis Manor, father and mother were already waiting at the gates, watching crate after crate of guests flow into the estate storerooms. They were clearly delighted. Off to the side, One of the concubines looked on with undisguised envy, clutching her handkerchief so tightly it was nearly torn. Julian refused to let my parents bow to him. Instead, he was the first to lower his head. Your son-in-law greets father and mother-in-law. Father ushered us into the courtyard. No need for formality, Your Highness. Come inside and eat. Today is a good day. You must drink a few cups with this old man. The concubine suddenly grew anxious and interrupted. My lord, wait a bit longer. Vivian should be here soon. Father's expression darkened. He shot her a sharp glare. You're becoming more and more unruly. Do you even know your place? Who are you to make His Highness and this Marquis wait? With that, father flung his sleeve and strode off. Julian and I followed them inside together. Concubine's eyes were red, but she held back her tears stubbornly, not daring to let them fall. As soon as we entered the courtyard, father pulled Julian aside to talk in the study, while mother took me into her own garden. Worry filled mother's eyes. Era, does the prince truly treat you well? I could only tell her about the time I met Julian and Youngju. Mother nodded repeatedly as she listened. Nanny MCH, and once that you saved a dying bandit and it turned out to be the Prince of Yongchang. Now that I know this, I feel much relieved. Then we spoke of concubine. Mother frowned. Era, you probably don't know yet. Vivian's causing trouble in her in-law's house. And concubine is anxious, too. But all she can do is cry. She can do nothing else. I recalled Felix's obsession with Vivian in my previous life and felt confused. Is Felix not good to Vivian? Given the circumstances back then, marrying her should mean he loved her deeply, right? From mother's account, I came to understand Felix never married Vivian out of love. It was to control her more tightly, to make tormenting and revenge easier. Even consummation was despised by Felix. Within just 3 days, Vivian was beaten until bruised and battered. Vivian was never easy to get along with. When beaten and unable to fight Felix, she would torment his elderly mother instead. The whole family was in turmoil, making the entire capital a laughingstock. Thinking of Felix's regrets before death in my previous life, I smiled faintly. Felix, is this the happiness you desired? Sorry, I truly cannot give you that. Mother sighed and continued. Concubine has cried many times, begging your father to pressure Felix. But a married daughter is like spilled water. Your father can't control it. Besides, I think she brought it on herself. She was already betrothed, but still went up fooling around and even dragged you into it. I fiddled with the handkerchief in my hands, knowing Vivian's temper. Who knows what mischief she might cause today when returning to her natal home. No sooner had I spoken than a maid came to report that Vivian and Felix were fighting fiercely at the manor's gate. By the time mother and I hurried there, Vivian was crying as she scolded. Felix, I was truly blind to marry you. I might as well have given those 2 coins to a dog. At least a dog wags its tail. You're supposed to be educated. Yet all that knowledge has gone to your head. You're worse than a dog. Felix, have you no heart? For my return visit, you greet me with a pile of rotten fruit and send me off like a beggar. How am I supposed to keep face and your old hag of a mother? How is she still alive at her age? After washing clothes for so many years, why hasn't she died of exhaustion? Living only wastes food without my support this life. Felix could only serve as a lowly 9th-rank official in the Hamlin Academy. His meager salary barely supported a family. How could he afford to let Vivian indulge in luxury? Though Vivian grew up in the manor, even as a concubine, she lived extravagantly and naturally refused to suffer with Felix. Felix wore a faded cyan robe, his face tense and scratched. Silently enduring, concubine felt pity for Vivian, but dared not speak against Felix. If Felix hadn't agreed to marry Vivian, who knows what would have happened. This scandal was humiliating for concubine. She tugged on Vivian's arm. Vivian, stop. Let's go inside first. But Vivian refused, crying harder the more aggrieved she felt. I signaled the housemaids for burly women stepped forward and dragged Vivian into the manor. As I was about to accompany mother inside, Felix called out to me. A chill ran through me. This life aside from a brief meeting on the street after rebirth. I had no other contact with Felix. Or did he remember something? Era, I had a dream in it. You were my wife. I cut him off sharply. Silence. How dare you disrespect your princess consort? Seeing my reaction, Dix laughed. Seeing you like this. I understand everything. Era, you're not the princess consort. You should be my wife. I was furious. Last life, he poisoned me. This life, I only wanted to live quietly, leaving each other alone. Yet, he still dared to show up. His audacity was unbelievable. Era, you have a wound on your right pinky. It was from cooking for me last life. You are mine, and you can't deny it. Even if you are a princess consort now, that doesn't change the fact that you belong to me. If I suffer, can you live at ease as a princess consort? I was about to retort when Julian suddenly appeared. The princess consort doesn't need you to meddle. If you have time to dream such dreams, serve diligently in the Hamlin Academy. His word sealed Felix's fate. Felix would probably never leave the Hamlin Academy. Stuck with the lowest pay, the hardest tasks, and no chance of promotion. Julian pulled me close, offering me a strong sense of security. The prince's reprimand is justified. It is I who was wrong. A low-ranking official could never compare to a prince of great merit. When Julian and I returned, Vivian was still causing a scene. Father, please let me marry the Prince of Yongchang. I won't fight Era for the princess consort's position. Even being a concubine would satisfy me. Father was so furious he smashed ornaments around the room, leaving a mess everywhere. Vivian, you have committed such scandalous acts. I have spared you once already. Yet you still want to fight Tara for the prince. Vivian cried pitifully, unwilling to accept. Father, it's unfair. Both my sister and I are your daughters. Why can she be the princess consort? But I can only marry a lowly official. Father, you are too biased. Father didn't bother to argue further. One more word and you'll be kicked out of the manor. Don't ever claim to be my daughter again. I have no daughter as shameless as you. Father never cared for Vivian's feelings. Her tricks were useless before him. Felix felt embarrassed. Only now did he truly understand how wrong he had been. After returning to the manor, I told Julian everything about my past life. Felix's visit today could only mean you remembered those events rather than let him come to cause discord between Julian and me. I chose to lay everything out clearly. Such matters of past and present life were absurd. Yet after I spoke, Julian believed me without hesitation. He held me tightly. Wife, last time was my fault for coming back late. Luckily, Felix was blind and heartless. I have another chance. I was deeply moved and hugged him back. Husband. Thank you for loving me through both lifetimes. After this, our relationship only grew stronger. A month later, the imperial physician came to the manor and confirmed I was pregnant with Julian's child. We were all immersed in the joy of becoming parents. Unaware that war was once again erupting in the northern lands, the emperor was reluctant to let Julian lead the troops. But with continuous defeats at the border, 10 cities lost in succession, he had no choice but to dispatch Julian to reinforce the front. I racked my brain. Recalling that in my previous life, there was no war at this time. How did the conflict suddenly arise now? The only ones who could have caused this upheaval besides me were Felix and myself. If it were just Felix as a low-ranking 9th grade official, I wouldn't worry. But Felix, armed with memories from his past life, was someone to fear. In my previous life, the man who became prime minister was no ordinary figure, even without my support. With that thought, I asked the nanny to bring me a map of the northern border and studied it carefully. Suddenly, I spotted a familiar place named Xinping. Xinping was Felix's hometown. A bad feeling gnawed at me. Clutching the map, I hurried to find Julian, who was preparing to lead the troops into battle. Husband Felix was prime minister in the last life. With his immense power and influence, he would never be content remaining a mere 9th grade official. This war must be connected to him. He has betrayed Dao. I knew Felix well. His ambition surpassed even Vivian's. He might risk everything to rise in the world. After hearing my words, Julian hurried to the palace overnight. When he returned to the manor at dawn, he brought with him 2 secret guards. On the day Julian led the troops out, Mother stood with me on the city tower for a long while. She comforted me gently. Era, don't worry. The prince has never lost a battle, and this time will be no different. I softly caressed my belly. Mother, for the sake of me and the child, he will do his best. The days apart from Julian were the hardest. Longing for him tormented me almost to madness. As the weather grew colder and my belly swelled, Julian's news ceased. During the new year, Mother and Father especially came to the manor to keep me company. Mother cooked several of her signature dishes for me, but worried about Julian. I had no appetite. Not wanting to trouble them, I forced myself to eat more. Suddenly, a loud bang shattered the peaceful reunion of our family. A group of men dressed in black stormed in. The secret guards and the manor servants immediately stepped forward to defend, shielding me and my parents. But the intruders vastly outnumbered them, surrounding us tightly. A man and a woman swaggered in arrogantly, squinting. I recognized them, Felix and Vivian. Lately, my heart was consumed with thoughts of Julian, and I paid little attention to them, only knowing they were not faring well. Never expected they would dare to break into the manor. Vivian looked at me with a triumphant smile. Sister, you never imagined that I'd come this far, did you? In fact, I owe you thanks. Meeting your husband was all thanks to you. After all, even if you become a princess, what does it matter now? You're just a prisoner. Felix said with deep resentment. Era, even if I've made mistakes, you shouldn't hold it against me. You belong to me. Why did you marry the Prince of Yonk? With a wave of his hand, Vivian was seized. You dogs don't even recognize the princess anymore. My husband is the future regent. You're all beneath contempt. Felix gripped Vivian's wrist harshly and threw her aside. Vivian, you're nothing but a burden. I've tolerated you long enough. Today is my day of reckoning and your death day. He sneered coldly, pointing at Vivian. She's your spoil of war. Take her and use her as you please. Whether she lives or dies doesn't matter. Vivian was incredulous. How dare you treat me like this? You're heartless and still thinking of my sister. You're a child blasting after a Swanderman. Felix stepped forward and slapped her several times. Hurry up and drag her out. Don't you want some fun? The guards cheered thanks to the regent prince's generosity. Then they lost control, dragging Vivian into the courtyard to abuse her while groaning with pleasure. Vivian's arrogance vanished. My husband, my dear husband, I was wrong. It was my fault. I shouldn't have looked down on you or humiliated you. Please spare me. I won't dare again. Ah, so thrilling. Husband, please don't. I'm dying. Please spare me. Don't want to die. But it was all in vain. Felix was no kind man. He had no intention of mercy. After hours of torment, Felix ordered them to drag Vivian back inside, then plunged a sword into her chest. Because of you, I lost Era. You deserve to be toyed with and to die. After killing Vivian, Felix looked at me with pleading eyes. Era, come back to me. Follow me. And when the new emperor ascends the throne, you'll still be a princess. The child you carry can't be kept. But that's fine. We'll have our own. Era, I apologize. The past was my fault. From now on, I will treat you well. I knew he hadn't changed. He simply knew he couldn't survive without me. His attempt to win me back was purely because he still needed me. But I could never trust this hypocrite again. Era, do you really like that Julian? He's nothing but abandoned and unworthy of you. How could you prefer him over a refined scholar like me? Being with him is too humiliating for you. Jellic slowly approached me. Era, if you return to the right path, I will treat you well. Otherwise, I interrupted. Are you going to kill me? Felix's eyes darkened with menace. I won't kill you. I'll lock you in a cage and feed you by hand every day, never letting you see anyone, even if your heart isn't with me. Your body belongs to me. His words sent a shiver down my spine. Felix was truly a monster. Seeing I wouldn't yield, Felix lost patience. Seize everyone in the Yongchang prince's manor and throw them in prison. As for the princess, send her to my room. I want to cherish her for a few days. Let's see how long that bastard child survives. I cursed him. Felix, you beast. A beast. Whether you like it or not, I am your husband. Suddenly, a familiar voice rang out. Aller's husband can only be me, and you are nothing but a treason. Seize him. I turned toward the voice. It was Julian. He strode forward and pulled me into his arms. Wife, I'm sorry you've suffered. Felix couldn't accept such an ending. In a moment of rashness, he drew his sword and took his own life. Later, I learned that the day Julian entered the palace, he was actually consulting the emperor on a strategy. Felix's ancestral home was in Xinping County, a territory controlled by the Underworld King. The Underworld King had long been secretly colluding with the Jiangmu, but had lacked the opportunity to act until Felix took the initiative to make contact. The Jiangmu faked an attack on the northern lands while the Underworld King overtly infiltrated the capital, with Felix mainly responsible for delivering messages. After Julian led the troops out on campaign, both Felix and the Underworld King believed the moment had come and conspired to seize the capital. However, Julian, who was secretly undercover, caught them red-handed and swept them all up in one fell swoop. In this way, heading fulfilled why the Emperor and Julian eliminated the head and destabilizing forces within Dao. Hearing this, I asked, so that means my husband never actually left the capital? Julian nodded. Exactly. My lady, I have been living inside the palace all along. I couldn't help but break down in tears, pounding on him. Why didn't you tell me the truth? You made me so anxious and scared. Julian, let me vent. Without a hint of impatience, my lady, war is a man's business. I couldn't bear to drag you into it. In truth, I came back to the prince's manor every night to see you. A few days later, the underworld king and Felix's rebels were completely eradicated. The emperor bestowed rewards according to their merits. Julian became the regent prince and I, the regent princess. With spring breezes brushing my face and willow catkins fluttering, our son was born. The emperor was generous. Before his full month, our little boy was already titled a commandery prince. Another year of prosperity. The peach blossoms blazed with color. Julian cradled our son beneath the peach trees, playing joyfully. I sat nearby, sipping tea, feeling fulfilled and smiling like the blossoming peaches, warm yet unassuming. In this life, Julian and I are happily complete, quietly awaiting the laughter of spring in the year to come.